All right, let's dive deep into the Wrong Turn franchise.
Ooh.
The Hillicker family, they're iconic, wouldn't you say, in the world of horror?
Absolutely. I mean, their journey from like these mysterious figures to, well, a full-blown dynasty of horror, it really shows how um, horror movies, they got to keep things fresh.
Right. Balance that familiarity
Yeah.
with the need for those innovative scares to
Yeah.
really stay
It's
relevant.
a tough balance.
It is.
But the Hillikers, they pull it off.
Yeah, they do.
And it's fascinating how I mean, look, they're grotesque, right? They use brutal tactics.
Yeah,
But they managed to keep our attention across, what, like 6 films?
at least 6.
And we have articles, behind-the-scenes info, all sorts of stuff. We're going to dive into their origins, the symbolism, what makes them tick, what makes them endure.
What makes them such effective horror figures, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So first things first, paint a picture for our listeners who might be new to this whole backwoods nightmare. Where do we find these folks, and what makes them so darn creepy?
Okay, picture this. The isolated forests of the Appalachian Mountains.
Oh, I've heard stories.
Right, and that's where they reside. And their appearance, it reflects generations of inbreeding. So missing fingers, deformed faces, razor-sharp teeth. It's all there in the source material, and believe me, it's a visual assault.
Definitely sets the tone for their, how do we say it, for their brutality.
For sure.
And you know what really cements that, that image? The source material, it describes them using human body parts as tools. Like, it's just ew.
Yeah, it's chilling.
Sends chills down your spine.
It shows how resourceful they are, but in like the most horrifying way. They're not just mindless monsters. They're adapting
Right.
to their environment, but in this twisted, intelligent way.
So let's rewind to the beginning. The first Wrong Turn
2003, yeah.
throws us right into the action. 3-finger, 1-eye, sawtooth, the gang's all here. It's terrifying, but the film, it kind of holds back, right, on their backstory.
And that's what's so brilliant about it.
Yeah.
It keeps their origins mysterious,
Yeah.
relies on that fear of the unknown.
It's what they do, not why they do it.
Exactly.
That's what makes the first one so unsettling.
It's your imagination, right? That fills in the blanks.
Yeah.
And that's scarier than anything they could show.
So then Wrong Turn 2, Dead End comes along, and it tries to shed some light, right, on the Hillicker family dynamics.
Right, and we start to see some organization. Like, they weren't just running around the first one. There's, like, a hunting pack vibe. They're communicating. They have strategy.
It's not random violence anymore.
No.
Makes you wonder, does knowing how they operate, does that make them more or less scary?
It's a good question.
Because random violence, that's terrifying, but when it's strategic, chilling.
It's like a whole different level of fear. And the
Okay.
sequel taps into that, the way their minds work.
Then we jump to Wrong Turn 3, Left for Dead. What happens when the Hillickers are, well, they're not the only threat in the woods anymore?
Right, Wrong Turn 3 throws a curveball. They're pitted against external threats. They got to fight for survival. They're almost like traditional slasher villains now, defending their territory.
So the franchise starts to humanize the villain a little bit. Does that make them more sympathetic or less scary? I don't know.
That's a tough question.
It is.
But it raises a good point. What makes a horror villain really compelling?
Right.
Is it just pure evil? Or is it something more, something we can almost understand?
And we get the prequel, Wrong Turn 4, Bloody Beginnings, taking us all the way back to the Hillickers' origin story.
This is where it gets good. The Glenville Sanatorium, the mental institution, sets the stage for their horrifying beginnings. And we meet Pal Hillicker, the patriarch. He seems more normal at first, but there's this, like, instability.
And this is where they make it explicit, right? The mutations are from inbreeding.
Yes, exactly. It's not just hinted at anymore. It's core to their origin, adds that disturbing realism.
So we're not dealing with supernatural monsters anymore. This is the consequence of generations of isolation and, well, depravity.
It's the reminder, right?
Yeah.
That the darkness we fear, sometimes it's rooted in our own reality.
Chilling thought.
It is.
Which brings us to Wrong Turn 5, Bloodlines. New generation, same messed up family, right?
You could say that, yeah. Wrong Turn 5, new generation. But they keep the core elements. The cannibalism, the hunting, that messed up family bond. How does a franchise stay fresh, but still give you those familiar scares?
It's a theme we see a lot in horror. Got to balance the familiar with the new.
Right.
Surprise the audience, but also give them what they expect.
That's what makes a Wrong Turn franchise so interesting. It's like a case study in how horror evolves.
But then the 2021 reboot, and it's like they took a hard left turn. What's the deal with ditching the Hillickers?
Bold move, right? The 2021 reboot, they introduced the foundation. These people, they've been living in isolation for centuries. Same woods as the Hillickers. But it divided the fans. Some loved it, some hated it. Was it betraying the legacy? Or a necessary evolution?
It's fascinating how fans react to change in a franchise, you know?
Yeah.
It's like there's ownership, but also a desire for something new.
Right, that tension between familiar and new, that's what makes horror so great.
It's about finding that sweet spot, right?
Yeah, gotta satisfy the expectations, but also subvert them.
Delight and terrify.
Exactly.
Well, I think it's time for a break. We've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
From the Hilliker's origins to that controversial reboot.
But don't go anywhere, we're just getting started.
When we return, we'll go deeper into what makes the Hillickers so effective and explore whether they could ever, maybe, make a comeback.
Stay tuned. Back with us, diving deeper into Wrong Turn.
Deeper we go.
Before the break, we were talking about the reboot.
Right, moving away from the Hillickers, introducing the Foundation.
It was bold, but I don't know.
They just didn't have that same, primal fear factor for me.
Interesting. So for our listeners, what is it about the Hillickers that makes them such effective villains? They stick with you even after all these years.
It's that primal fear of the unknown, right? Lost in the woods, hunted by something, inhuman. It's a nightmare, taps into something deep inside us.
That vulnerability, being out of your element, that's what makes them terrifying. They're the wild, raw nature.
And let's be real, their appearance doesn't help.
Oh, no.
Those mutations, the inbreeding, it's like a visual assault.
Definitely tells you these are not people to mess with.
But it's more than just looks, right?
Oh, for sure.
There's intelligence there in their brutality. There's strategic. Think of those traps in Wrong Turn 2. That's cunning, not just some mindless slasher.
Right, that's key. Slashers are scary, but often just brute force. The Hillickers, they plan, they adapt.
And then the cannibalism adds a whole other level of, revulsion.
It's taboo. Most of us can't even imagine it.
But in horror, it's the ultimate violation.
The complete dehumanization of the victim. It strikes at our core, reminds us of our own vulnerability.
And Wrong Turn uses it to explore survival, desperation.
Right, they're a product of their environment. They had to adapt.
Twisted take on nature versus nurture.
Are they born evil? Or just a reflection of their world?
A lot of horror films grapple with that.
It's what makes them so compelling.
So looks, intelligence, cannibalism, but there's something else.
Oh. What else contributes to their appeal, you could say?
It's family, twisted, and dysfunctional, but it's there. That bond makes them more formidable.
Interesting.
Remember in Wrong Turn 4, the young Hillickers?
Yeah, I remember that scene.
There's loyalty there, protectiveness, even in the depravity.
So their family is as much a part of them as the mutations.
Like their own twisted moral code justifies anything.
Makes them more terrifying. It's organized, purposeful.
Not just instinct.
It's a reflection of a human need, connection, belonging.
But taken to a dark, destructive extreme.
That's a good way to put it.
It's a theme throughout the franchise, right? The people closest to you, the ones who should protect you.
Can also be the source of your nightmares.
Exactly.
A classic horror theme, betrayal, vulnerability.
Okay, so we've talked about why they're effective, but have we seen the last of the Hillickers?
Ooh, good question.
Could they come back? In horror, nothing stays buried forever.
True, the reboot seemed like a departure, but anything is possible.
We've seen iconic villains return and done well.
A successful franchise revisiting its roots, it can work.
It could breathe new life into Wrong Turn, but it has to be done right. Respect the legacy, but update it.
You're right. Can't just rehash the old formula. It needs to be fresh, subvert expectations, but stay true to the core.
So let's get creative. How could the Hillickers return for a new generation of horror fans?
This is the fun part.
Beyond analysis, pure speculation.
Let's brainstorm.
Give some aspiring filmmaker out there some ideas.
Okay, first, the setting, the isolated mountains, it's been done. We need to take them out of their comfort zone.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Urban cannibals.
Whoa, hold on.
Hillickers in the city, forced out of the woods.
Fish out of water story, but with, a horrifying twist.
Exactly, the primal fear of the unknown, but modern. The familiar becoming monstrous. The darkness is everywhere.
Imagine them in the subways, in abandoned buildings.
Playing on our anxieties about city life, surrounded but isolated.
Or what if they blended in? Your neighbor, your coworker, hiding in plain sight?
Now you're thinking the psychological horror. Anyone could be harboring a dark secret.
Okay, setting, premise, but what about the Hillickers themselves?
Right, they can't be the same old cannibals.
Gotta be fresh, relevant.
Let's challenge the stereotype, give them a voice, explore their motivations, the family loyalty, their philosophy.
So we're trying to understand them.
To a degree, not condoning, but making them more complex.
More human, and therefore more terrifying.
Exactly. It's not just survival. It's a clash of ideologies. Their brutal worldview against ours.
That's thought-provoking horror, the kind that sticks with you?
You're getting it. By humanizing them, you amplify the horror. It's confronting uncomfortable truths about ourselves, about the darkness.
I like it bold, but it could be groundbreaking.
A wrong-turn film like no other, pushing the boundaries.
So there you have it, folks. The Hillickers as effective villains and some ideas for their triumphant return.
We went deep into Wrong Turn and came out with a new appreciation for the power of horror to reflect our fears and anxieties.
But wait, there's more. One more part to go. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.
We're back one last time for our Wrong Turn deep dive.
Back for more, huh?
We've talked origins, evolution, even a potential comeback.
It's been quite a journey, wouldn't you say?
It has, but before we wrap things up, got to circle back to something you said, humanizing the Hillickers.
Oh, right?
Risky, but could be really powerful.
It could. Give them a voice, explore their motivations, take that primal fear, add some psychological layers.
How do we do that? How do we make them more than just monsters? Okay, what if, instead of just the brutality, we explored the impact of their upbringing, psychologically? Generations of inbreeding, not just the looks, but their mental state.
Nature versus nurture, but taken to the extreme.
Right, not are they born evil, but how did their environment, how did it shape them?
And that could get really disturbing.
It could. Their warped family, their moral code, their lack of empathy.
Making the audience confront that line, human versus monster, it's not always so clear.
Exactly. We could even explore generational trauma.
The past haunting the present.
Right, think about Pay Hillicker in Wrong Turn 4. He seemed normal, but there were those tendencies.
What if his experiences, his traumas, created the cycle of violence?
Chilling thought.
It is, but it adds depth, complexity to their story. They become more than just killers. It's a cautionary tale.
About violence, about trauma.
And that's what good horror does, right?
It is. It's not just jump scares. It's about the darkness inside.
Within us, within society, the things we ignore.
The Hillickers, they're grotesque, but they hold up a mirror.
To our own fears, right?
Exactly. They represent that potential for savagery that's inside all of us, the instincts we try to suppress.
So, could they come back? I think, after all this.
Yeah.
I think the answer is yes.
I think so too, but it has to be done right. Fresh perspective, psychological complexity, challenge the audience.
So there you have it, our deep dive into Wrong Turn, a twisted journey through horror, the origins, the evolution of one of cinema's most messed up families.
We've analyzed their brutality, their motivations, even imagined their future.
But we've had a great conversation, haven't we?
Yeah.
About the power of horror, to reflect our fears, challenge us, to remind us that, well, civilization and savagery.
They're not so far apart.
So until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and as always, thanks for taking this deep dive with us.